Okay, what? A bacon rib? What? No way. You mean to tell me that this whole time you could make both bacon and ribs better? That doesn't even seem possible. Uh, so I guess my mind's blown immediately. So Jeremy Yoder, the mad scientist, came to Texas for he was doing a smoker giveaway. It was really cool. Got to hang out with him a little bit. He went to Leroy and Lewis, and they had what they call this bacon rib, and that's what this picture there is from, where he took a bite of this bacon rib that apparently this magical thing exists. And I didn't know about it, but he took a bite of this bacon rib, and he said it was one of the most tender pieces of barbecue he's ever had. So I guess he went home and then like is now he made it. So I am dying to see what this is. I have to try this. So I'm gonna watch this video and then I'm gonna go out and do this. So you can stay tuned for a video on this because there's gonna be two parts of my life: the time before bacon ribs and the time after bacon ribs. So I want to see how he's gonna make it. I'm gonna see if I can replicate the recipe. But today we're gonna see how he's doing it and see what is going on. So let's take a quick look at this and see how it looks. Look at
Hey
that.
guys, welcome to Mad Scientist Barbecue. I'm Jeremy Yoder, and today I am super excited because I'm cooking something that I've never seen before, except at one place in Texas. Today, we are cooking bacon ribs.
Let's do it. Ah, there he is.
The first thing we have to do to prepare these bacon ribs is cure them. That's what gives it the bacon.
Okay, really quick. I don't know why like the video quality is so bad here. I checked other videos, and for whatever reason, this part of this video it has like it looks weird. So just I don't know what's going on.
Bacon-like flavor. That's why ham might taste different than something that's uncured. It's the curing process. So that involves using curing salt. In this case, prod powder number 1 or Instacure number 1 or curing salt number 1, whatever you want to call it. It has sodium nitrite in it. And then we're going to add table salt and a little brown sugar. It's a very simple cure because I'm going to add more flavor with the spices that we add when we rub these before we smoke them. The reason I'm doing a wet brine rather than a dry brine like most bacon recipes call for is twofold. The first is wet brines are faster. Typical protocols call for 4 to 5 days of curing rather than 7 to 10 days with a dry cure. The second reason is I'm going to cut one of these slabs into individual ribs, and I want to make sure that I don't over-cure the individual ribs and under-cure the whole slab. So being in wet brine, it should reach equilibrium, and it won't continue to increase the concentration of salt in the meat just by having a layer of salt on the outside. So they're going to be equally cured, and everything should be cured evenly. So
That's actually going to be interesting to see is if one has more of like that penetration of cure than the other. Because I feel like sometimes with the briskets, like you've got a lot of good seasoning on there, but it doesn't get all the way through. So this will be interesting if he cuts it. If it's as juicy as the ones that are not cut, and if that you get nice good penetration there.
So those are the reasons why I'm doing the wet brine. Very simple. It's a gallon of water. It's 8 ounces of kosher salt. It's 5 ounces of brown sugar, and it's half an ounce of pink curing salt number 1. So I have some hot water that I'm going to use to mix all those ingredients and get them dissolved. And then I have some ice water that I'm going to add to it so that we have everything cool before we put the meat in. All right, let's dissolve some of these dry ingredients.
By the way, pink curing salt is awesome. That stuff is how you make the pastrami's look good. It gives it all the cure that you need, and it only takes a little bit to go a long way. It's pretty sweet.
The salt's almost completely dissolved already. Brown sugar. More brown sugar.
Load it up. Oh, it's spilling everywhere. Look at those ribs. Okay, so he may talk about it later, but these ribs that he's making are basically pork belly on top of like the spare ribs. So when you take like this rib, like the butcher will normally take that off because you can make more money selling them separately, I'm assuming, or you have more options, one of those two. So to get like the pork belly with the rib on there, A, seems kind of hard to find, I'm sure. And B, like, look how thick that rib is. Oh my God, that is awesome. Jesus. It's actually some pretty meaty like ribs too. It's not just all fat. It's actually a really good looking cut of ribs. The classic boning knife. I have one linked in the description below.
This is where you could separate it
Yeah.
and get the rib portion there that's connected to this, the belly. But why not just cook them both together? Because you can. In order to get this to really penetrate well on this whole slab, I'm going to remove the membrane on the back of this, something I never do, but I think for this, it's warranted.
Yeah, he usually does a cross-section crosshatch. I'm not sure if he does that still after being with Joe Yim in Kansas City, where Joe does not do the cut or scoring at all. Neither of them remove the membrane, so we'll see what they do here.
Get your handy-dandy paper towel.
I hate doing that. It's always such a pain.
I haven't done that in so long.
Mm-hmm. God, that looks so good. There's the mixture.
Look at how red the meat on that pork is.
Mm-hmm.
This is what the big difference is between commodity pork and stuff that you get from a place like Porter Road. It's actually dark red, whereas pork you buy in the store, it's the other white meat. But really, this is going to be so much more flavorful. There's a lot more myoglobin in there, and you're going to have a much richer and more delectable cut of meat at the end. So let's cure this up. I can't wait to put this on the smoker.
Yeah, goodness. There's the see. Look, there's not that much pink curing salt, and for all that meat, and it'll still turn that thing perfect. Oh my goodness, that's gonna be so amazing! Holy crap!
Okay, lid on. This goes in the fridge. I'll see you guys in about 5 days. Our bacon ribs have been in the fridge in this wet brine for, I think this is the 7th day now. So hopefully it's had plenty of time to penetrate. I know the individual ribs I cut up shouldn't be a problem, but the whole slab, I'm a little bit nervous about it. We're going to find out how far the cure penetrated based on color when we're done. But before I get those out and pat them dry, I'm going to construct a spice rub that we're going to put on the outside. We don't want to use a pre-made rub because almost all of them already have salt. So the spice rub that we're going to create isn't going to have any salt, but it's going to have other flavors that we want on this super rich and decadent cut of meat.
And that's interesting too, because he normally is a very, very simple seasoning person. I mean, he has some recipes that have like multiple spices, but for Jeremy, normally he's like a salt and pepper guy only. So it'll be good to see how this works out.
Got a shaker right here. I have a ton of these things, and despite the fact that I cook almost everything with just salt and pepper, I have lots of different spices and I play around with stuff all the time.
You see?
So I recommend getting these, and constructing your own rubs is a lot of fun and gives you some ownership over the process.
That's
But
true.
first ingredient is 16 mesh black pepper. Not a shock. And we're definitely going to be including more of this than anything else. Also, I'm going to include all these ingredients in a link in the description. So this ingredient, granulated garlic. It's not garlic powder because that can kind of clump up really easily.
True.
Next, we have ancho chili powder, an ingredient that I love, and my wife, we'll just say she does not love it.
Same.
It gives kind of a nice raisiny flavor, but not very much heat. Next up, we have a little bit of guajillo chili. This is a little bit for color, just like the ancho, and then it's got a little bit of spice and a little bit of flavor. Then we have a little bit of chipotle. It's got about the same heat as cayenne, but I think much better flavor.
Yeah.
A little bit of dry mustard powder.
Man,
Next up, we have an ingredient that I really like. It's maple sugar, like maple syrup, but a sugar. Brown sugar is good, but I like maple sugar even more, and maple syrup is difficult to include in a rub. The next ingredient we have is one of my very, very favorites. I highly, highly, highly recommend that you guys check this out. This is granulated honey. So it's like the flavor of honey, but in granules. This is pork. It's already cured. It needs some sweetness to balance it out. So we have 2 forms of sugar. Let's shake this up. So here we have our rub. It's got a little bit of red from the chilies that we added, but we're not going to really have to work too hard to create color because we're going to be creating color with the smoke in the smoker. So this is going to help things out a little bit, and it's going to provide some sweetness to offset some of that richness that we get from the cured meat.
I'm actually really surprised at how little of a seasoning he has there. It doesn't take a lot. So we'll see if it goes like a long way. I mean, obviously the opening picture looked pretty good, but it's interesting to see like what he's got there. So, hopefully it'll be pretty good.
Let's get our bacon ribs. Let's see what they look like. I haven't peeked at these individual bones. This is humongous.
Oh man.
Oh man, doesn't that one look good? Oh, there's even marbling in the meat streaks in the bacon. This is going to be amazing.
But just the right amount. It's not too much fat in there. All right. Yeah, but see, not doesn't look like it's over seasoned.
Now the whole ride.
That's a generous coating.
On the very top here, I'm gonna go pretty heavy.
Okay. That looks perfect. Oh, it's a new smoker. I'm jealous.
So we're putting those on at about 200 degrees, and today we're using hickory wood because I want to make sure I get plenty of smoke flavor in there.
Nice.
Unlike regular bacon where you're cold smoking and then you cook it later, we have to get plenty of smoke flavor in there in the short period of time before these heat up.
I'm using that damper. Get that low heat. Look at that. Oh my goodness. Are you
It's been
freaking
about
kidding
6
me?
hours. I think the individual ribs are going to be almost done because they're going to be a lot thinner than the whole huge rack all together, because it's going to be the thickness of the meat that's going to determine how quickly it cooks. Also, in other news, I finally have a cooktop for this table. So once again, shout out to Brad for the chud table.
All right, I want to point out something right here. Is like I am insanely jealous of this like cooktop out there. It's high enough for you to work on. It's got the burner. It is the most gorgeous outdoor cook table ever. So it's on my Christmas list. I definitely want one of those things. Of course, it's Brad. Brad's amazing. By the way, a hilarious individual. From the moment that you meet him, you just don't stop laughing until you depart ways. It's awesome. So super jelly of that table from that he has now and that smoker behind him. So I'll just continue to like roil in envy of all the cool stuff that Jeremy has.
I freaking love it. So if you're wondering what we were doing, we spent about the first 4 hours kind of low and smoky at about 200 degrees. And the last couple hours we've been doing between 250 degrees and 275 degrees. And we want to render fat at this point. The beginning was to get it smoky and get good color. Now we're focused on rendering fat because there's so much fat, it's got to be rendered well for this to be really tasty in the end. So I checked the temperature of the ribs using my handy dandy thermopen. The whole slab is about 168 degrees, and then the individual ribs are in the 190. So that means I got to work on my glaze right now. It's going to be a maple bourbon glaze. Let me show you how I do it. First, we're going with the maple syrup.
So I've had that glaze.
This stuff is so delicious.
Yeah, I had that stuff firsthand. If he's making what I think he's making, we had that in Kansas City, and you know what? Like, I'm not usually one for like the molasses and the maple syrup and the sweet, but this is actually a pretty decent balance. It's you're getting like a nice mix. It's not like this honey glaze. I mean, look, there is a place for like the sweet glazes and those kinds of things, and I do like them. It's not what I prefer all the time. This particular glaze, I think, is a really good balance of sweet and savory. So we'll see what he makes here and what kind of ratios he uses.
And this being Kentucky, we're going to make a maple bourbon glaze. This is just some Evan Williams. It's not going to be super fancy stuff. If I use super fancy stuff, my brother would drive over here from his house and punch me in the face, because that is a waste of good bourbon. He's a bourbon connoisseur. I am not, but I know enough not to use like Pappy Van Winkle or something in this. But,
Pappy. That's good
what
stuff.
we're after in creating this glaze is we want to balance out all the richness and fattiness of the pork belly. So we have the maple syrup because it's going to provide sweetness as kind of a counter to the really fatty, rich stuff. And then we have the bourbon that's got a kind of sweetness all its own, but it's going to have the alcohol that's going to help cut through. some of the fattiness, and a lot of the alcohol is going to cook off, probably almost all of it. And then we're going to need something else to balance the fattiness. And you can do this with acids or things that are a little sour. And for that, we have tamarind paste. If you guys don't know about this ingredient, it's an awesome ingredient. It tastes kind of sour and tart. It's kind of citrusy. And this is an ingredient that people use in barbecue sauces a lot. It's absolutely delicious when you use it in small quantities. So we're going to add a little bit of this now.
Nice. That's a good call out right there.
Not too much.
Just a little bit.
Scoop that in there. Cleaned with alcohol. And then lastly, I'm going to add a little bit of honey because it's going to thicken this up, hopefully to about the right consistency. And it provides another kind of sweetness because the sugars present in maple syrup are not going to be identical to the sugars present in honey. This is actually from Knottywood. With the last pellets they sent me, they actually sent some honey, which I'm excited about. I have not tried it. It's almond blossom honey. Oh, it smells good. You can smell the honey all over it? Yeah, that's freaking good. When I was a kid, we used to put honey on toast. And my mom would make homemade bread, and then she'd make toast. She would actually like kind of fry it in butter.
Wow.
And then we'd put honey on it. Oh,
I think we're gonna need a recipe for that, Jeremy. that honey toast recipe there.
That's what it reminds me of. Just a little bit. Mix it all together. The total ratio of bourbon is probably a quarter of the volume. And then everything else makes up the remaining 3/4. What I want here is something sweet, a little bit tangy, and then just a little hint of the bourbon flavor. It's not going to be as complex as a sauce because we already added rub on the outside. I just want it to be tasty.
All right, that's a little bit more complex than what we had in Kansas City.
Look at this.
But man, that looks freaking. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Oh my goodness. Look at that bark. What? 188, 199. All right. Jeez, come on. You got to be kidding me. Oh my God. I'm going to put my face.
We're going to let these individual ribs glaze. The full rack needs more time, so we're going to wait a little bit to glaze that.
Yeah, those are way ahead.
I think some of the individual ribs are done, so we're going to pull those off, and I got this aluminum tray that I'm going to put them in.
He said that so conspiratorially. Okay, so 190s, 190s. I bet those things are like butter up top. I wonder how like that meat closest to the rib is gonna be. Oh my goodness, I'm gonna lose my mind. I'm so hungry right now. Dang it. Wow. Look at that.
Okay, both versions are done, so we're going to taste them. I have my buddy Kyle over here. He's going to be a taste tester. Ideally, these would rest a little bit longer, but the show must go on, and he can't wait around all night. Yeah. So they are done, but we're going to slice into them, even though they're still pretty hot.
Yeah, that's always the balance, man. Like, if you're backyard barbecuing and you've got things going on like that, if you're not up at 2 a.m. getting started, everything is just never going to be done on time. I figured out that for me, the magic time is the meat has to touch the grill no later than 4, and if I'm pushing it 5 in order to be ready for the barbecue that night. It's just that's the time. And so like he's stuck here. I mean, it's not a big deal here. He's gonna eat it a little bit hotter, but yep, magic time 4 or 5 a.m. Look at that. Holy crap. I think it's important to note how well the knife is going through that. It's not a serrated blade. Yeah, the money shot. Okay. Yeah. All right, we're all hungry now, sir. Wow, and the jiggle, man. But his knife was just going right through.
Okay, so we have our 2 samples. One is very barky, the individual ribs, and then one is super juicy, this whole slab that we cut up now. And if we look at this big, thick chunk of meat, we have kind of a bullseye right in the center. I mean, obviously extremely juicy. But we have this bullseye right in the center where the cure did not penetrate all the way through. We got almost all the way through. So I'd probably recommend going 8 days, 9 days, 10 days on this just to make sure that everything gets cured. But with the individual ribs, all the cure is definitely going to have gone all the way through. I got inspired to do these when I was in Texas because at Leroy and Lewis, they make really, 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 really good food. But the best bite of barbecue that I had while I was in Texas was the bacon rib from Leroy and Lewis. It was so good. I made a face in the video. It looked something like this. And yes, the bacon rib was that good. And if I can make this half as good as that was, I'm going to be really, really happy. So let me get into tasting these, and we're going to see which method is the best. The individual ribs definitely cook faster. They're definitely barkier, but let's see if they're still juicy.
All right. All right. I'm going to call it where the individual ribs probably have more seasoning flavor and better penetration, obviously. But the whole slab is going to be more tender overall. I think that I'll be curious to see if he can keep a lot of that, fat render in. So we'll see. I mean, they cooked faster. We'll see. So, but I think that probably in short, the individual will be seasoned, but maybe a touch more dry. It's really good pork that he has there, though. So it's hard to say. But the slab will probably be more juicy.
Okay, so I have my buddy Kyle here. If you guys are on the Discord with Patreon, it's Kyle Cowboy Q. He doesn't live very far away, and we actually do some of the classes that we put on in Kentucky at his farm. So that's how we know each other. And I was like, I know somebody who loves barbecue and would probably be willing to come over. I'm guessing it's good because my wife Erica stole one of these bacon ribs and is currently eating it. She's not actually manning the camera at all. So hopefully that's a good sign. But Kyle.
Also, for the record, Erica is the best. She is an awesome human being. So if you ever get a chance to meet Erica, do so. She is just a genuinely amazing person.
So we have our individual ribs. It should be kind of barkier on the outside and hopefully still juicy. Okay. Then we have the one that we cooked as a whole rack, which just looks pretty awesome in this like huge thick rack of
what in the
ribs.
World.
But I say we start with one of these that was from the whole rack.
Okay.
And then we move on to the individual. So on the whole rack, we're still able to get really nice, dark, deep colored bark. And it's still packed with juice. The only rule is you got to be honest. If you don't like it, you can say, I don't like it. Oh, by the way, so Kyle loves barbecue, but he's not a salt and pepper guy like me. So I'm like salt and pepper 99.9% of the time.
You're slowly changing my opinion.
Well,
Caveat.
To be fair, though, Kyle's more of like a meat church seasoning guy. He wants a more complex rub in what he's doing. Let's get in.
He's also a really nice guy. He was in I went to one of the classes, and he's a super nice guy, super helpful, and very, very nice.
One of these from the whole rack. I'm going to take a bite from the end here and see what it's like. Smells good. That's not bad. Juicy. I like that you can taste like a bacon cure on that.
Mm-hmm. Definitely not mad about it.
There's sweetness on the outside, but I don't think it's too sweet. For me, I don't like too sweet, but I could have gone even maybe a little bit sweeter.
They're not fall off the bone. They're cooked to perfection.
Well, thank you, Kyle. That's juicy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they've got a little bit of structure there still to them. It's not like it just kind of fell apart and fall off the bone. And I mean, it's like the old thing goes. It's if you're cooking at home, you want that fall off the bone and just you pull out the rib and it's clean. If you're in competition, you want to get like that firm bite. So when you pull the rib away, you've got the rib, the meat still there, and you can see where your bite went, was there. So him saying that it's not fall off the bone is actually not is not an insult or a criticism. That's actually how you're supposed to cook them. I try to find somewhere of a balance in the middle. And if I overdo it, people are like, "Oh, this is fall off the bones." Like, well, I'll ding myself internally, but I don't say anything about it. So yeah, it looks like there's some good structure to those ribs. And he doesn't seem to have the same face from when he was at Leroy and Lewis. Now, when you eat with Jeremy and you eat his barbecue, his stuff is really good. So, he has a long palate. So anybody who has what he's eating right now that he just made will probably never taste something as good, like that good in their entire life. If you're in the craft barbecue scene, you could probably make some comments to it there, but Jeremy's really good at what he does. He cooks real well. So, he's not going like crazy about it, but I guarantee you that is some delicious barbecue. So let's see where they go from here.
Could have gone maybe even a little bit longer
Let me
and just
see.
rendered it down even more. I'm going to eat some of what would actually be the rib part at the bottom. Different texture.
Let's try the individual ones.
After you, sir. All right. Cheers, Kyle.
Cheers, buddy.
Guy looks so good.
100% this is the way to go.
Yep.
Wow.
I shouldn't have said that. What do you think, Kyle?
Definitely, if I were doing this, definitely individual them. Definitely cook them cut up already.
Yeah, it's still super juicy with all that fat in there. And you have so much opportunity to create more flavor on the outside. And another thing is, these are so darn rich
Yeah.
that you're going to be eating
Yeah.
like one,
Yeah.
or if you're a glutton like me, two. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, that's a one and done.
Dude. Get a little crispness.
Wow.
You get kind of that bacon saltiness. You taste the curing salt in there too. Wow.
Erica, get you that one. Have another one.
All right, Kyle, what do you think? My thoughts, I will save, but give us yours. The good, the bad, the ugly, whatever you think.
First time I've ever had this, and I will definitely be going online and trying Porter Road out.
I have an extra rack in the freezer if you want it.
Oh,
If you
that's
wanna
not
take that home.
fair,
I
bro.
would greatly appreciate that.
Damn it.
Thank you.
Okay, so what are
I
your
am
thoughts
so
between
jealous.
the two? Let's start this. What do you think of the glaze? You like the glaze?
Love the glaze.
Okay.
Love the glaze. The perfect hint of maple, perfect hint of that Tennessee bourbon. It's phenomenal.
So if you're taking that rack of ribs home, how are you doing it? You cutting it into individual bones?
Yeah,
Or are you going to do the whole rack?
I personally am going to cut them individually.
The
Yeah,
individual
definitely.
bones, there's more flavor there. It was a little saltier, so I would probably maybe put it in the brine for 5 days instead of 7, maybe 4 days instead of 7, because the issue wasn't with the cure penetrating. It's just we don't want it to be too salty. You can reduce the total amount of the kosher salt that we used if you want it to be less salty. But I think what I would probably do is take it to 180, wrap them just to soften the outside just a little bit,
Foil
And-
paper.
foil,
Foil.
and then
Yeah,
I would
works.
glaze them with a glaze and then just kind of let it sit in there, let it rest, then take a bite. Because even though there's sweetness there, I want just the outside to be a little bit softer and maybe just a hair less salt. With these, I think the salt amount was perfect.
I agree.
These were juicier. The whole outside was softer because we kind of cooked it as like one whole big chunk rather than having a ton of surface area. So if you want softer and you want something that you can slice on the board and you just throw one of those on a plate and it looks like you have this rib, but on top is this big fat chunk of bacon.
Yeah.
I think maybe this. Both are good. If you want more texture and more smoke, go individual. If you want juicier and something that just looks
See?
super cool when
I
you
was
cut
right.
it and divvy out the individual bones, I'd go the whole rack. Either way, I don't think you can go wrong. Erica actually prefers the ones that were the whole rack. But yeah, this was super cool. I'm definitely going to be doing these again. I got to dial it in.
I'm definitely going to try these.
Well, thanks, Kyle. Thanks for being a guinea pig for us.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, man. Want a paper towel?
Yeah, probably.
So, final thoughts. This is one of the coolest cuts I think you can find anywhere. I don't know of anywhere else you can find it except for at Porter Road. The flavor of the pork is really good. The flavor of the cure enhances it. The flavor of the smoke enhances it even further. And then kind of the flavors that we put on the outside with the rub and the sweetness is just, it's really my cup of tea. So if you want what's kind of like the juiciest rib of all time, or if you want kind of the richest tasting pork belly of all time, this is kind of the way to go. So the bacon rib reigns supreme in my book right now.
Wow.
As far as pork goes. It's something I'm definitely going to be doing again and again and again. And I know that every time I serve it for people, they're going to be like, where did you get this? And I'm like, actually, you know what? You can't find it in the store. This is something special that I got. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Okay, that was awesome. Like, I am starving right now. Absolutely starving. I chose before dinner to try and do a reaction video, which is dumb. But go follow Jeremy on everything that he has available. You won't regret it. He's great at what he does. He's a super nice guy. And I cannot wait to try this recipe out. It looks like this is going to be a game changer where it's, as he said, it's the reigning champion of pork right now. And I really think that if this is something that I can get a hold of, that this might be like all I ever do ever again. Pork belly is one of my absolute favorite things. Pork ribs are one of my favorite things. And I could eat them probably far more than I should. So I'm really looking forward to trying this out. Stay tuned for that video, and I have another reaction video coming out next week. So look forward to having you here. Thanks for joining us, and I will see you next time. Thanks, guys.